All right, you guys ready to roll?
Let's do
Sure.
it.
You got your cameras nearby?
Yeah.
I have my cameras nearby.
That's what I'm saying. You have your cameras.
Oh yeah, I'm surrounded by cameras.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into this then, shall we? It's 7:05? Yeah, it's 7:05. Whatever, I can get into this. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us here on Pro Camera Reviews. This is the Easter Sunday edition here in 2020. And we are staying safe here during the COVID-19 crisis here in America. My name is Chris Gambit. I'm the editor-in-chief of The Photographer and founder of The Photographer. And this show is a show where the entire reviews team of The Photographer talks about the cameras and the lenses and all the gear that we're reviewing and have reviewed. I am joined here by Paul Ip, our reviews editor.
Hey folks.
And also Brett Day, our gear editor.
Hi, everyone.
So we have a pretty fun show today. When we were planning this, there was a topic, our first topic that we're going to talk about, that we figured, there's a way that we can actually make an entire show about this. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite vintage film cameras. And then we're going to talk about the Olympus EPL10. Brett just got it in for review, I think, last week. Right, Brett?
Yeah, Monday.
Yeah, and he's been playing with it. It's almost a week. It is one of Olympus's brand new cameras, and he's going to talk about how he's been testing it, during everything that's going on right now. And yeah, we're going to spend some time talking about that. I'm also going to show you guys a little bit about the philosophy about how I edit my RAW files from the Fujifilm X Pro 3. We're going to do something a little experimental with Capture One, and you're going to get a little bit of insight into why I do what I do. Then we're going to talk to Paul, who has finished reviewing the Canon RF 85mm f1.2 DS lens. Yeah, I got the entire name. No, I didn't even get the entire thing in there.
It's the Canon RF 85mm f1.2 LUSM DS.
Thank you.
Yeah, that took me a while.
I was about to say, yeah, this is a variant of Canon's other 85mm f1.2 for their R-mount cameras. We'll talk about why it's so special a little bit later. So yeah, let's get into our favorite vintage film cameras. So guys, I really wanted to talk about this partially because of the fact that, I really want to go back out there and shoot some film. I haven't gotten a chance to do it in forever, and now you would think, hey, this would be a great time to go out and shoot film, but the problem is that I don't develop my own film. I know some people that do, and I mean, film to me and vintage film cameras in general, they're really more about passion to me than anything else. I mean, digital for me is more about like work for the most part. And yeah, digital to me, that's how I really differentiate things. Digital to me is mostly about work, and film cameras are mostly personal. I'm sure you guys don't always shoot and think the same way, but let's get into some of our favorite vintage film cameras. Brett, you want to go first since you have the most unique, I guess?
Sure, absolutely. So my first favorite vintage camera, I think, is going to be one that a lot of photographers they've used before, especially if they've been to photography school. It is the Pentax K1000. It is an absolute gem of a camera. I actually picked this up for, I think, $50, which was an absolute bargain. I don't know why, I've got a picture of a Canon on my screen right now. Do you see that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think one of our viewers shared it.
Yeah.
We're going to get to you guys in a bit after the show.
I was going to say, yeah, please don't do that.
Hang tight, folks.
Yeah. Continue.
But yeah, I picked up this camera for $50, which I thought was an absolute bargain. It's actually the first camera I shot with back when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. My dad had one. So when I saw one, I picked it up and was like, it just took me back to my childhood, The thing I love about this camera is the build quality. It's just a tank. It's just like Pentax cameras today. It's just solidly built. This thing is easy to use. There's nothing complicated about it. slap a 50mm on there like I normally do, a 1.8 or a 2.8, off you go. It's just an absolute blast to use.
How big is the 51.8 on there?
Tiny little lens.
Hold it up a
As you
little
can see.
higher, man. Oh man.
Yeah, super tiny.
You're giving me FOMO, Brett. I still have mine, but the pentaprism is detached, so that thing's boring.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a shame. You know, and I was actually really surprised when I picked this one up because one of the big flaws on this camera was the light seals would fail on it. This one's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So I love using it.
How much did you get it for?
I'll buy another one soon.
What was that, Chris?
How much did you get it for?
I paid $50 for it.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's an absolute bargain. And then speaking of bargains, the next camera I have, when I think of photography, I think of fun. I love having fun with photography. I got this little guy right here.
Oh man.
Little Rolly S. Rolly. I've heard it pronounced so many different ways, but I found this guy at a garage sale for $5. $5. And it is in mint condition. It is incredible.
Yeah,
there's not a mark on it. And it's got the design Sonar 40mm f2.8 lens on it. And it works perfectly, and it's just so much fun. I love taking this thing out. It's a conversation starter. People will always come up to me and ask about it. It's just a blast to use, this little thing.
Man, what camera strap do you put on there? Like, it doesn't look like there's any strap on it.
It's just the standard strap that came with it. Yeah.
Oh, it's a wrist.
Yeah, it's a wrist strap, and I've got the original case for it too, and the strap comes through the case as well. So it's actually really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, is the case anywhere as mint as well too?
Yeah, it's immaculate. It's like someone took it out of a box and then just left it in the case for. I think this came out in 67. I think it was 1967. The S came out, and it's just like brand new.
Jeez.
Yeah. Makes me want to go to more garage sales to see what I can find.
Yeah, no, totally, man. Oh, $5.
This is the case. Yeah, this is the case for it. Yeah, $5, man.
That's crazy.
$5, and it works perfectly.
I'm in awe right now, and actually really shocked. Like,
slightly jealous.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. You know, I've looked online, and these are selling for $300-400. Oof. So I really couldn't believe it. I really wish it was a made in Germany one because they sell for thousands. But this is the made in Singapore version. $5 bargain. If you see one, snap it up.
Yeah, seriously. Like, you'd go into a vintage shop here in Brooklyn, and like they'll probably be way overpriced. But
yeah,
$5.
$5.
You want to switch states, man?
Not right now. Maybe after COVID.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a very good point. Paul, you want to go next, or you want me to go next?
Yeah, I could go. So I've got 3. We talked about this guy a little bit. I think last week or the week before. So this is the Fujifilm Natura S.
Mm-hmm.
Fujifilm's made a couple of versions. Yeah, Chris has his also.
Yeah,
his
the pink.
Yeah, mine's lavender. They also made this in blue and black, and I think there's also like a 5th color.
I think there's a white version, Paul, and I also think there's a...
that one is not the S. That's the Natura with the built-in zoom lens.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's a different variant, but that's also a great camera.
Is there a green version? Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, so here it's a point and shoot, and it's got a 24mm f1.9 lens right there. You guys can see that, and it comes out when you turn the camera on. Just a little bit.
Turn to the side. Show them how small that thing is.
Super thin. So off, on. Here's the back of the screen. It's backlit. It's great. Everything is pretty much auto. Although you could tell it to go focus to infinity if you're shooting landscapes with it. It's just a great camera. It's great for parties. Great for just traveling. It's not as thin as your phone, but you could easily slip into your pocket and go. I love shooting with this guy. Pretty much anytime I'm traveling for personal work, I'll keep it in my kit just to have it.
It's also a fantastic party camera.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. Yeah, it's easy because it's 24 mil. You could kind of take selfies with it. I'm horrible at selfies, but if you're into taking selfies, it's you could do that. And then the next guy I have is my. I don't know if you can see this. Here's my vintage Leica M4. Some of you may cringe because I have a Canon lens mounted onto it at the moment, but yeah. So this thing is beat to hell. I don't know if you can see. You can see the brass coming off, and same with the back. And yeah, also like some of the leather red is falling off in the back. But this thing is a tank. Love this guy. It really makes you slow down compared to like shooting digital. You really shooting with intention. You're taking your time, and yeah, everything just feels great. I don't think I film in here. Yeah, no, I don't. So I'm gonna see if you guys can hear this. You guys hear that?
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I love everything about this camera. I mean, what else is there to say? It's like,
I mean, also in addition to that, there's no light meter in there.
oh, that's true.
So
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I meter externally anyways when I'm shooting with Leica or just Sony 16. And then the third guy that I shoot with quite a bit, not as vintage, but still pretty old. I think it's over 20 years old. Here's my depending on what country you buy this in. This is the Minolta A7 or the Minolta Maxim 7. Depending on the region you pick this up in, it goes like the two different names. I've got the 84-1.4 mounted on it. I love shooting portraits, so this lens is almost always on the camera unless I'm shooting street or something. Then I'll switch to 35. One of the cool things about this camera is it's actually got the same mount as Sony's SLT cameras. So that's before Sony went to mirrorless. So it uses the same A mount. So when I first switched to Sony a couple years ago, I was able to adapt some of the lenses over. And before Sony had as many lenses as they do now for E mount, and using the LEA4 adapter, you could use pretty much all of the A mount lenses on your E mount camera. This thing is probably the most modern vintage camera that you could get your hands on. It's got all the mode dials that you've got. I'm not going to turn it on right now because I actually have film in here that I need to finish shooting at some point when we're allowed out again. But yeah, it's great. It's not weather sealed, but it's pretty darn well. It's got a built-in flash that I've never actually used. There's actually got a screen in the back, so sometimes people ask me like, "Oh, I'll take a picture." Oh, can I see it? I'm like, here you can look at the preview in the back. So yeah, how come your LCD's broken? I'm like, no, it's not.
one thing to also mention is that's using the old Minolta hot shoe, which was the most busted thing in the world.
Yeah, I don't love this thing, and I've been here to look at the hot shoe. It actually looks different than the MIS that Sony has right now. I'm trying to figure out a way to use off-camera lighting with this camera because I'm a huge fan of shooting with off-camera lighting. So if I'm able to do that, I would actually shoot with this even more than I do now.
Is there a PC sync port in it?
There is. It's on the side. I don't have the cover on this guy. It's like when I got the camera, it wasn't included on it, but I've never gotten anything stuck in it. The Leica also has one, I believe. Yeah, on the back of Leica, it also has a PC sync port. So they both do.
Yeah, that's probably one way that you could do it. Use like a PC sync cord.
Yeah, so I'll probably have to go full manual with everything, but it's good to still have the option.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris? What do you have?
Okay, well, I was, when I was talking with you guys in the notes about this, I was thinking about which cameras I was going to show you guys. So just to preface this, I have maybe 5 or 6 35mm film cameras. I have one large format camera, and I have 2 medium format cameras, but I'm showing you my 35mm cameras. So I want to tell you a story, and I think this is actually going to be published soon, about my Leica CL. This version is actually the Leitz Minolta CL. So this camera is pretty special to me because It's a camera that I learned on in college. I sold it for money in college, and on my 30th birthday, I decided I would go ahead and I would buy one of these again. So I looked it up, and it was the same camera that I sold in college. So this camera essentially came back to me on my 30th birthday. It came with the Minolta 40mm f2 lens that it's usually bundled with. That one was not the same one that I had in college, but it's special to me for that reason. Now, the CL, it's Leica's smallest M mount camera. It's incredibly tiny. Like, this is my hand. This is it. Here's a Leica M6, which I'm going to talk about soon. It's significantly smaller by a lot. And it's got a light mirror built in. It's got this weird thing that no other Leica really has. It's that's the shutter, which is weird, but it's also kind of cool, I guess, in a way. The rangefinder is not the brightest, but overall, I mean, if you're just looking for a Leica camera that's very affordable, you're trying to get into Leica M mount, and you want something that's really small, you can't really go wrong with these. Sometimes they shoot up in price. Sometimes they go really, really low down in price. I'd recommend just watching the market and looking for one that's really, really cheap and just snatching one whenever you can. I think I got this one with the lens for like $650. And then the next day, I think they went up to like $1,200, and they went all the way back down to like $500. Yeah.
Wow.
Michael's saying that he's got the 90mm f2, which is also a great lens that you can get with this thing. Now I'm going to talk about arguably my favorite camera right now, the Leica M6.
Ooh.
Now, I was a guy that was, I was a Leica M4P guy because of the fact that I wanted a very reliable camera. Now, I'm saying that right now, and obviously, you know, I'm holding Leicas that are still working. They've been around for many years, and you would think, hey, Chris, isn't that reliable enough? To me, not necessarily. It is a camera that is incredibly reliable because it's got a mechanical shutter, so it's very difficult for it to even stop working at all. But because it also has the electronic meter in there, you can get the benefits of electronic metering, and you just won't have any major issues. Let's say the electronic meter stops working. You would then go ahead and you would just use it mechanically, the same way that you would with your Leica M4 Paul. So you just like Sunny 16, or maybe use your phone or something else like that. So yeah, this is actually my favorite camera for film. It's nowhere as beat up as Paul's is. Actually, that's how you change the ISO control. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't really have any problems with it. I like it. It feels like a Leica. It's one of the best things about using a Leica too is you can zone focus with it. So basically you can say, hey, I want to be at f5.6 and I want to focus at like 5 feet away. And then it'll tell you that whatever is between 4 feet and 8 feet there will be in focus. So basically you just need to walk up to something that's between 4 feet and 8 feet, and you'll most likely get it in focus.
Nice.
Yeah.
Does yours say ISO in the back, by the way, Chris, or does it say ASA?
It says ISO.
Oh, wow. Yeah, mine says ASA.
Well, yeah, yours is much older.
Yeah, I think this is a 64. Yeah, it might have been made in 64, I think.
Yeah, Brett, your Rolly is pretty old and can take a battery too, right?
Yeah, it can. It actually takes a mercury-based battery, which obviously you can't buy in the States now. You can buy some replacements for it, but they're actually really pretty expensive.
I mean, is there no way to convert the battery? Like, are there any services that do that?
You know, I haven't honestly looked that much into it, to be honest with you.
You can shoot it without the battery, though, right?
Yeah, you can shoot without the battery.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
That works. I mean, a lot of cameras do need a battery in order to actually even operate the shutter. I prefer for them to not, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, those are some of our favorite vintage film cameras. And we're going to move on to the next topic, hopefully without any interruptions. Brett, I'm so sorry about that one, guys. I feel really bad, but yeah. Brett, let's talk about the Olympus EPL10, please.
Yeah, for sure. This is it right here. Another tiny, tiny little camera. It's actually the first time I've held a pen EPL camera in my hand, and it's a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be honest with you. It feels really good though. It's actually a little bit of a grip on the front. I've got massive hands. This camera is, tiny. I can hold this camera really comfortably. So ergonomically, you're not going to have too many problems with it getting a good purchase on it. The problem I have with ergonomics is going to be the tiny little dial on the back here.
I see myself in the screen there. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Woo, there you go.
Zoomception.
But yeah. The controls on the back, man. I took this out yesterday. We're not under complete lockdown here in Oklahoma, so I went to a park that I knew would be completely empty. It was just me and my wife there the whole time, so it's actually really cool. I used it for about 3 hours, and I actually ended up with like massive cramps in my hand from having to use the controls on the back where it's just so tiny. Having to jam my thumb into the control dial to change the settings, that was not very comfortable.
Can you bring that closer to the camera, Brett? Let's take a look.
Yep, for sure.
Oh man.
Yeah, it is really cramped in there.
Yeah.
And the way you change your ISO, or the way you change your aperture and your shutter speed, is actually by using this control.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So it's you're jamming your thumb in there the whole time, and it's just really quite painful, to be honest with you. But otherwise, it's a cheap feeling camera. It's plastic. It's all plastic. There's no weather sealing in it. Although I do like the color on this one, like the gunmetal black and gray. I do like this over the tan and the white version. So that's just personal preference though. But it's a good looking little camera.
Yeah, it's got like an X Pro 3 color scheme going on.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Just so you don't get those fingerprints that come up on the metal there at the top.
Brett, show us the top of the camera. I know there's a mode dial, and like that's the shutter.
You got the mode dial right here. You have you can assign this to the shutter, so I did use that. But then to change the ISO and the aperture, you're still using that dial. Then you have your power switch right here. It does also have a pop-up flash, just right here, which is really pretty cool. But yeah, that is it right there, ergonomically.
Now, you've been using this to shoot some macros, and I'm going to bring those up in just a bit, but talk to us about your experience with the autofocus that you're having.
Autofocus is actually really pretty good. It's contrast detect only. So there's no phase detect. There's 121 autofocus points, which is the same amount of points that like the EM1 has. I think the EM1 has 121 as well. I've had zero problems with it. It's actually focusing really quickly. It tracks really well as well. We were trying to get some birds in flight yesterday, and it done great. Getting some ducks going across the pond, it done great as well. And then for macro work, it's fantastic as well.
So you've been shooting these macros. We're going to share this right now. So this is what you're doing. This is one image that you shot.
Yep.
It's a flower.
That is a flower. Dandelion.
Yeah, I'm going to make this larger. You brought this into your house and shot it?
Yes, sir. I sure did.
Now I saw that you were like using flash for some of the stuff. This is clearly flash, right?
Yes, I was using the Flashpoint Explore 400 Pro for lighting on this.
Yeah, but I mean, unless we talked about that, you would have thought that maybe this is natural.
That trigger looked massive mounted there.
The trigger is about the size of the camera, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that looked ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, this was shot outside, and look at how crisp those details are.
Nice.
Yeah, it does really good. And this was with the 60mm f2.8 EMS macro lens.
Gotcha. Now, I've always thought that was one of the best things about Olympus and Micro Four Thirds in general, just because of the fact that like you can get so much in focus at any depth of field. You know, f2.8 is actually f5.6, and when you're focusing so close to something at the macro ranges, you can focus down to f8, and that's pretty much f16. Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, that shot right there was f8, I do believe. So yeah, f16, but you're still getting the light gathering capabilities of f8. So it's a fantastic system for macro.
And have you been editing the raw files yet?
I have. They're not compatible with Capture One Pro yet. So I have been using Lightroom, but the files are actually really pretty versatile. I've been able to recover details in the highlights and pull up some shadows quite easily. The colors look fantastic. For a 16 megapixel sensor that's what, 5+ years old now, it's pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think. So you're using the touchscreen as well too. Does the touchscreen like flip up?
It flips down actually. So you got, let's see here. So you can flip down for a selfie.
Okay.
For those that do like to do their old self-portraits and stuff. And actually the one thing I will say about the build quality is this bracket is excellent. It's actually probably the thing that adds the most weight to the camera. It's a solid metal. It's actually really sturdy. I was surprised by it.
And when you're shooting macro stuff, I'm guessing what you're doing is you're like flipping the LCD up to make it easier for you.
Actually, I just kept the screen where it was when I was shooting macro, because I had a camera sitting on a tripod pointing down at the object, so it worked fine. But yeah, you could definitely manipulate the screen to make it easier for you.
Okay, yeah, because I'm thinking about like the ways that I've used some of those pen cameras is I would just use the touch screen and I would like tap on something and it would immediately focus on something. But I can imagine that's significantly more difficult to do with macros, correct?
Yeah, in fact, when I doing the macros, I was shooting manual focus almost exclusively, and I did try to do the bracketing feature in this as well. This camera actually has live composition, which is what some of the OMD cameras have, which is really pretty cool, and it has the focus stacking as well for macro.
Do you plan on using the live composition feature for something like, I don't know, astrophotography or something like that? Obviously safe.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I'm going to do as soon as we get some clear skies, because I can't really go out. I'm going to jump out into my backyard and try and do some star trails.
Oh, cool. I wish I could do that here.
That's one of the best features that Olympus has in their cameras, that live comp.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really cool.
Yeah. So what are you thinking right now? I mean, you have the Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you have a couple of lenses. Would this be, for any Olympus shooter, would this be something that they might consider to be taking up like complementary to what they have already, or would they want to go for something higher end?
You know, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this one, because I mean, if you wanted something that's really small, you could slip in your pocket, and you were going to use a small lens like on it, like the 14 to 42 kit, it's great. For the price though, right now, I would probably lean more towards something like the EM10 III, which is actually cheaper than this right now.
How much is it right now?
The EM1 III with the lens is $599, and this is $599 without the lens.
Oh,
oof.
Yeah, with the lens, this is $699, and you can get the EM10 III without the lens for $449. And it's identical camera, same sensor, same autofocus system. It's just a tiny bit bigger, weighs like 0.4 pounds, is heavier. But you also get an EVF as well on the EM10 III.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Brett. Appreciate your insights. Appreciate
How's
your
that compare,
images.
by the way? Just for grins, next to the Rolly, because they look like they're about the same size.
Let's have a look. There you go. It's not too dissimilar at all, really.
Jeez.
Very close. Yeah. There you go.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Thanks, Brett. We're going to move into our next segment, which is me showing you guys a little bit about how I edit in Capture One, specifically with the Fujifilm X Pro 3's RAW files. Now, I did a video on this recently on YouTube, and I figured I'd just go into it a little bit more and talk about it a little bit more. So I'm going to share that screen right now. So we're going to share that screen. Okay, cool. These are images that I shot during the polar bear plunge that happens every year. It's kind of crazy. Oh man, I think it froze. Capture One, please do not do that to me.
Oh, Capture One froze?
No. Oh, it's fine. It's fine now. Cool. I was about to say, can you guys see what I'm doing?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
You see all these people not socially distancing.
Yeah, this was before social distancing was cool and necessary, I guess.
Yeah.
This was back in this happens on January 1st, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. It's freezing. It was incredibly freezing actually during that time. So yeah. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what I do here. So this is an image, and obviously it's already got a look to it. This is what something like Canon or Nikon would probably render right out of the box, and it would look like that. Sony would probably render something similar, but I feel like, you know, everyone really has image quality that looks like that. I want something different. And that's one of the reasons why I feel most people buy into Fujifilm, because you get a plethora of different film simulations that they develop themselves and really embrace them for who they are with their identity. Now, a lot of photographers really like the Acros options, and those could be really cool. Here you're seeing a couple render right there. But they also have the classic chrome look, and that's that right there. The Provia look and the Velvia look, I feel, are things that are very similar to everyone else. And I mean, if you want to embrace them, then fine, but I just don't usually use it for that. So I tend to use it. Let's, Brett, pick your favorite film from Fujifilm. Brett?
Yeah, sorry, I had my mic on mute. I like Acros, man, personally.
Okay, cool. We're gonna use Acros right now. So now we have that image right there, and that's, you know, a lot of people would say, okay, fine, that's just a black and white. So we can mess with that a little bit more. So I'm gonna try to get some more details out of, you know, that sign, and this is me without doing masking or anything like that. So now I get a little bit more details right there. Add some contrast. I'm going to bump up the shadows just a tad, lower the whites, deepen the blacks. Well, a lot of people don't know, and this is a trick that I was taught by Moose Peterson many years ago. When you deepen the blacks in an image, it looks sharper. So, for example, right there, the blacks are not very deep, and right now they are very deep. The trick is that it makes your eye actually really pay attention to everything else in the scene. It just ignores everything, and it's just like, oh, okay, fine, let's just work with that. So then after that, I go ahead and I punch up the clarity just a tad, and then I add sharpening. But something else that I really like to do, and I can already feel Paul cringing at this, is the vignetting right here. Vignetting, I think, really makes people pay attention to something very specific within the rule of thirds compositions. And that's what's happening right here, right now. So I'm going to do that with another image right here where the guy isn't really centered. So I can, Paul, choose a film simulation.
Well, I would say Natura, but they don't have it yet. So let's go with Classic Chrome.
Okay, fine. We're going to work with Classic Chrome right now. And
Fuji, put Natura in your cameras.
That is a big one. No, I agree with you. Something that I usually do as well too is I'll balance either 5200 daylight or 3200 tungsten. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do that approximately right there. So I'm doing that right there, and now I'm just going to add a little bit more contrast. Actually, no, less contrast. And again, it's really about trying to embrace the uniqueness that Fujifilm can give you. And I can get that right there. I can boost the whites just a tad. Actually, no, not really. So deepen that, brighten that up just a tad. And then I'm going to add a little bit of extra clarity. And I feel like right there, like that's an image that I wouldn't necessarily see from something that I get from Canon or Sony. Same with this, and obviously same with this, which is their classic negative look, which I'm very, very much in love with. This is a look that I believe was rendered after Superia, but the thing is that you can get that very nice pastel look that Pro 400 gives you just by overexposing it by around a stop. So right there, that's a look that you'd probably get from that pastel look. Let me find another image that's sort of like that. Yeah, this one will do it. So it is daylight, and I'm going to say classic negative, and then when I overexpose it by around a stop, you get that look. And that's that pastel look that they've really been known for with film these days. Now you can, mess with the highlights all you want. So yeah, that's really about my philosophy of editing with Fujifilm. And the thing is, like, could you do this with a couple of presets? You probably might be able to, but you're not going to get the same look, the same effect, and you're also not going to get the same experience because you need to go buy those presets, and then you need to figure out like the looks that you exactly want. It's sort of what a lot of wedding photographers do. They find a way to, deliver a unique look based on those presets that they get. And that's really what I do with Capture One Pro and the Fujifilm X Pro 3. Before I move on, Brett or Paul, any questions or thoughts about this?
No, yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good, to be honest. That's one of the best things about Fuji is you're pretty much good out of the box with very minimal editing. That's it. You don't have to sit there for hours.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, I will add, when used properly, vignetting is good. It's just some people tend to kind of crank that a little, past 11.
So in that case, then I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna raise the clarity all the way and the contrast.
Hey, Flickr from 10 years ago called.
Yeah, and I'm going to lower the blacks all the way, and I'm gonna max out the whites like that. And I think that's an image that's worth like being posted to.
That looks like a Zack Snyder film.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys.
Are you gonna call that Photo Martha?
Photo Martha. Oh man. Oh Martha. Yeah. So that's really one of the ways that I edit, and that's me going deeper into it. And I think that, that's one of the fun things about both Fujifilm and Olympus. Olympus has that with all of the, they're called the art filters with Olympus, and Fujifilm has it with, obviously, the film simulations. Canon, Nikon, Sony, they don't necessarily have that. Canon, Nikon, Sony, I feel, are more designed for, like, a very clinical look, which is great. But if you want something with a little bit more character, I think Fujifilm does a really great job with those film simulations. So yeah, guys, let's move on. Paul,
Yep.
you have been playing with the Bocalicious lens, and you finished your review, and it's coming in a couple days. So talk to us about this. All right, let's try this again. Canon RF 85mm f1.2 L USM DS. I almost said IS. I almost said.
Well, that's the one thing it does not have is IS.
Yeah.
Yes. So, just to show you guys, I'm gonna hold here's the DS that's mounted to the EOS R, and then I also have the non-DS version of the 85. So if you saw me on the streets with this camera and the lens mounted, they look basically identical. The only difference externally is this little marking that says defocus smoothing on there. I don't know if is that coming through?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Pretend.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, defocus smoothing. So what that is a new type of coating that Canon developed that it's designed to gradually reduce the amount of light that gets transmitted through the lens from the center out to the periphery of the frame. So instead of very sharp specular highlights that you're going to get with point light sources, the resulting bokeh is actually significantly smoother and creamier. So one of the things that we pointed out when we first reviewed the non-DS version of the 85 was that it's already has great bokeh, but I wouldn't say that it's like the smoothest, creamiest bokeh out there. Like the Sigma 105 is legendary for being the bokeh master. But after I've shot with that too. I actually reviewed that for the site as well. Having shot with that lens and then having shot with the original RF85 f1.2, and now having tested the RF85 1.2 DS, this is probably the best bokeh I've seen out of a prime of any system that's currently available in the market. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Better than G Master?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I reviewed the non-DS version, I already said that like that lens was one of the best 85 portrait lens have used, and this just kicks it up a notch. Now, the one trade-off you get because of the DS coatings that they use, I believe they coated two separate elements, a front element and one of the elements within the optic stack. So it's coated twice. You lose about a stop of light, which it's fine. You could easily compensate for that. The high ISO performance on the EOS R is actually excellent. So if you're shooting at low light, for the most part, you're fine. If you're shooting a super super low light situation, then you may run into a little bit of trouble. Other than that, you just shoot it the same way you would with the non-DS version. It is a little bit pricier. The original 85 RF 8512 is already $26.99, I believe. This kicks it up another notch. You're paying a $300 premium, so it's a $3,000 lens. So it's not cheap by any means, but if you're the type of photographer that wants the smoothest, creamiest bokeh, then this is worth the investment. Otherwise, save yourself the $300 and go with the regular version. It's still excellent. And yeah, overall, it's very, very pleased with this lens. And I just wish that Canon would have a better camera that I come out this to.
So, do you think it's really worth the extra $300? Like,
yes and no. So, if you are a working photographer that shoots portraits or like headshots or whatever, probably it will probably pay for itself in one or two shoots. That extra $300. But if you're really pinching at pennies and you don't absolutely need the creamiest, smoothest bokeh in the world, then probably no. It does make me wonder if we're going to see more DS versions of the other prime lenses that Canon offers.
how likely do you think we are to see a 51.2 version?
I would probably see the 50. There may be a variant of this. 35 probably not. And then we'll have to look at. I don't remember the entire roadmap off the top of my head, so I have to look at the roadmap again to see what else is coming. And I'm actually curious to see if Canon will offer maybe an upgrade service for people that already own the original, because like no sane person is gonna buy no sane person is gonna buy this guy and then say, oh, well, for the situation where I want even creamier bokeh, let me drop another $3,000 on this lens. That's insanity. Like if you're gonna do that, then sell the original and buy this, or just send it in and see if they can upgrade it for you by applying the coatings to the lens.
Now, let's take a look at some of the sample images, Paul. I'm bringing those up
So,
right now.
Yeah, so I've included most of these are from the DS. And then I've included some just for comparison that were shot with the non-DS version of the lens. So as you can see, go back to that last shot, Chris. Just look at like the out of focus bokeh in the back. The bokeh balls are super smooth. You kind of get that gradual effect where you have more saturated colors around the periphery of a bokeh ball, and then it fades back into white. So that's basically the effect that the DS coatings are doing to the image. Yeah, so you can see the background is completely smooth, and it helps isolate your subject.
Yeah, it's super smooth.
Yeah, so here's a comparison just to do a forward and back focus. So the bokeh, the front and back bokeh looks equally magnificent.
Yeah. No, that's pretty wonderful.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous.
That's actually a bigger difference there than I thought there would be.
Yeah.
For sure. It looks great.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. In a busy scene like this was so go back real quick, Chris. Yeah, like this was in Times Square before the COVID-19 lockdown, and as you can see, it really helps you isolate the subject even in such a busy scene like this.
Plus, you're mixing it with Canon's like color science. I know people talk about that,
Oh
and they're
yeah,
like,
I think this image I didn't even have to color correct at all. It was just straight out of camera.
yeah.
Yeah,
Man, people are not social distancing at all in this photo.
No, this was right before. I think this was maybe at the end of February or like the first week of March. I have to look at my notes.
Okay.
But just by comparison, let's go look at the last three images. Yeah, so as you can see, this was shot with the original non-DS version of the RF85, and you can see how the bokeh, you can see a more defined line towards the edge, and then we'll look at some of the other ones as well, and you could see the quality of the bokeh is significantly different.
This is also with the DS, Paul?
Yeah, so these last three images were these were the original non-DS version. So you see a much more defined outline to all the bokeh.
Okay, so these are the original, and then
Right.
let's go back. I'm seeing it in like the outer edges. So like,
Yeah, it's really the very edge of the of any point light sources. You could see a more defined barrier on there.
yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm totally seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a fan of that look, then I would say you're already spending upwards of $2,000. Spend the extra $3,000, and you'll be really happy.
You mean the extra 300?
Well, no, so the original lens is already $26.99. So if you were already looking to invest in that lens and you're a fan of super smooth bokeh, just spend the extra $300 and go for it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, but if you already own it, I wouldn't, it's a hard sell because who you're gonna drop $3,000 for something that's marginal,
Yeah, no, I completely understand that.
So that's why I was kind of wondering if Canon would offer some sort of upgrade service, maybe.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the build quality of this thing. Like, we abuse cameras and lenses all the time. And I know the original, you took it out into the rain and it kept working. Did you do that with this one too?
Yep. Yeah, it's built like a tank. Obviously, I didn't get to shoot in the rain as much just due to the fact that we're kind of under lockdown here. But yeah, it's built like a tank. It's basically everything about this lens, aside from the DS coatings, is identical to the original. So it's got the same exact build quality, same weather sealing, and yeah, you're good if you want to shoot portraits in the rain. Provided that your subject's cool with it, you're good.
Now, you were also talking about the fact that like a stop of like gets cut out of this, basically. So has that affected the autofocus performance at all for you?
No, I didn't notice any degradation at all. Now there could be that. So when you first mount this lens to the camera, it actually, if your camera isn't up to date, it will actually tell you in order to use this lens, you have to upgrade to version 1.6 of the firmware. So that might have played a difference. They might have compensated for it internally. But there's I would have to shoot with the original compared to this again, just to really see if there's any noticeable difference. But like from a practical standpoint, it works exactly the same.
That's pretty awesome, man. So, I mean,
yeah, it was a huge difference just upgrading the firmware from 1.0 to like 1.5 when shooting with the original 85.
So here's the big question. We've all shot with the Canon RF system. I own the 51.2.
Yeah.
You're using the 85mm lenses right now. Brett, you've shot with the EOS RA and a couple of their L lenses.
Yes.
Are those f1.2 lenses enough to make you switch systems?
Not yet. Again, one of the points I keep stressing is that I need a better camera to complement the lenses. The lenses are great, but you have to take into account they are playing catch up compared to other players in the market. So they don't have as big of a lens lineup yet. It is true that you can adapt EF lenses very easily, but again, you're still adapting lenses. So anytime you're adapting a lens, you're gonna deal with some performance degradation regardless. And I feel as good as the camera has improved with firmware update compared to what else is on the market, I think we really need like EOS R version 2 or the R5, the rumored R5 that supposedly is being worked on. I'd be curious to see how these perform on that camera, and depending, maybe if that camera kills it, then possibly.
Okay. Well, I mean, Do you also think that the third parties have anything to do with it? Do you think there needs to be more third party support from Canon?
Whoa, for sure. I mean, this is not unique to just Canon, right? So going back to Sony, for example, because since we're obviously talking about the mirrorless realm at the moment, when they first launched the E mount, they had very little third party support, short of Zeiss, because they were a partner. And over time, the third party support came, and now everyone makes lenses for E mount pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's something that will come. Just at the current point in time, in April 2020, the RF mount isn't there yet. It's got a solid foundation for sure, and I'm very, very excited to see what comes down the pipeline. In 6 months and in a year and 2 years. But at the current point in time, this is speaking from someone that switched from EF mount, Canon EF mount to Sony E mount a couple of years back. If I were to switch back, I would need a camera that performed, on par, if not better, than what I have now with Sony.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, because for me to switch back, sure, I get 1 or 2 really good lenses, amazing, but I have really amazing lenses now for E mount. So for me to have to switch back, I would need something substantial to warrant that switch.
In addition to that, too, I also feel like Canon needs to create a couple smaller lenses. I mean, they have that 35 1.8 IS macro.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. But in addition to that, I mean, they also just really need, I agree with you, up the features. Mm-hmm. What I will say, though, is they do a lot of things that make sense in photography, at least for me. For example, full use of the touchscreen that Sony doesn't do. And
yeah, their touchscreen is great. Their interface is one of the better ones. I keep saying that people should just license the touchscreen interface from Hasselblad.
Yeah, absolutely.
For good or for bad, Hasselblad, one of the best things about the camera is their touchscreen interface. And Canon it's like a close second to theirs. And yeah, it would have to be significantly better for me to want to switch back. And these lenses are gigantic. For me, it's fine. I single hand hold cameras all the time with a wrist strap. That's not really an issue for me. But I could see this being a problem for photographers that maybe have wrist issues or they just can't lift as much. It's some people they have trouble lifting heavier things.
Hey, Paul, put the hood on and then lift the camera up with the lens and place it next to your head just so we have scale. Ooh, man.
Yeah, I got a big head, so this thing is gigantic.
That's a chunky boy.
Yeah. So imagine if Canon were to come out with a 135, how gigantic that would be.
Yeah.
Imagine a RF mount, 135, f1.4 or f1.2. That thing would probably be out to here.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that's definitely going to feel front heavy, I think. Yeah. But I'm excited for what's coming down the pipeline for the RF mount. That just, they need their equivalent of an A9 or an A7R4,
And Brett, you were also a Canon shooter, and now you're not. You were in Fujifilm, and then now you're Olympus. And you also shoot Pentax.
Yep.
You're one of the few Pentax shooters I know. What would make you go back to Canon?
Definitely a new camera body as well. If I was going into a system where my lenses were costing $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, I'm going to need to have a camera that can absolutely maximize those lenses to their full potential. Definitely. That would be the biggest thing for me.
You know what I need? I need, what's that thing called? Computational photography? Yeah, I need that built into my cameras. I'm not even kidding you right now. I think that camera manufacturers really need to find a way to compete more with phones. And I know that, obviously we're here on the show. We're talking about lenses. We're talking about sensors and all that kind of stuff. But most people can't tell the differences. And I think that, camera manufacturers, they need to find a way to be able to compete with, the latest iPhone or the latest Pixel phone or the latest Samsung phones or something like that. I mean, those companies are just doing everything via software, and the camera companies are trying to find a way to do everything via physics and optics and all that stuff. But, they have great software engineers, and they have great processors and sensors, and I feel like they can release a whole lot more potential. That's one of
Yeah.
my biggest problems with Sony, for example. Like, when the Play Memories apps went away,
Oh,
that was the worst thing, because you had options
yeah.
for like multiple exposure, and then you had this touchless shutter feature where like all you had to do was just bring your hand near the EVF and then it would just fire the
Yeah, I
camera. It
used
was
to
the
use that
greatest thing.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, for what it's worth, they also had their version of like live comp that you could get for the camera, which now you can't get with the newer bodies. Which, yeah, I mean, every time we sit down with their engineers, we keep asking them like, "Hey, when you guys bring this back? When you guys bring this back?" Because
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
if I mean, even if I have to pay like $5-10 for like these extra features, like sure, but at least give me the option.
I mean,
But
I think they should be built right in considering their prices.
no, I don't disagree, but at least like if you're gonna remove the ability for me to purchase these quote unquote like add-ons or DLCs, right? Um, then if you're not like building them in, like what the heck? Like you just stripped features out. There's no replacement. That doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah, and also it's funny that you mentioned Sony because they're they're also well, they make pretty much like the lenses for most phone manufacturers, and even their own phones are pretty good. It's got some of the same tech that's powering their cameras. So I'm kind of hoping that we'll see them kind of converge the two and bring some of that
Hmm.
tech over to the camera side, and we'll see. Maybe we'll get better stabilization, or we'll get some added features that they took away. Who knows? But yeah, they definitely need to do more in that regard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, as always, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for talking. I think this was a great episode, despite a couple of technical problems. But yeah, we're all good, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and take care.
Happy Easter, folks.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Now I will cut recording.